This is the final video for the series Be Still. We've been looking at these two words for the last couple of videos, and I've really kind of enjoyed kind of digging into this, and we could spend probably a lot more time on this, just trying to find other little things in this little thread of two words that kind of go through different people's lives. I think it appeared in Abraham's life, and I think it appeared with Joseph and all of these different stories, but we can probably run that thread a little bit later. As I mentioned in the other video, that we're going to be looking at Genesis in the coming months. We're going to be doing some videos on that, which I'm really excited for. But back to this Be Still. So we've looked at Psalm 46. We looked at some storm stories, and now we're kind of going to look at a group of people that just got new freedom. So if I could set this up, we're going to read this first, and then I'm kind of going to fill in the gaps here a little bit. It says, Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You only need to be still." So looking at that real quick, so this comes out of Moses and the Israelites just got out of Egypt. Moses and the burning bush and all of that stuff. And Moses had just got Pharaoh to let them go after 10 plagues, after bugs and flies and gnats and frogs and water turned into blood and hail the size of whatever. And Pharaoh still didn't do it. And then finally, Moses had his firstborn son killed, and all of a sudden that got Pharaoh's attention and he let him go. But when he woke up the next day and his iPad slave wasn't there and the morning coffee slave wasn't there, we had a bit of a problem. And Pharaoh was like, I can't function without these slaves. I need them. I'm going to go get them. Ready my chariots. And so they go, and Israel has already gotten a considerable distance away from them, and Israel is now backed to the Red Sea. And they're stuck there. About approximately 2 million of them, some people say. There's a lot of people going on here. And they get to this body of water, and they start to complain. And that's right before we get to the verse that I just read. So they start to complain, and they're like, Moses, we're hungry, we're tired, we have no water out here. At least in Egypt we were fed and had water. Yeah, but they were slaves. And Moses just kind of like, Lord, what do I say to these people? Because I'm at my wit's end with them already, and I just started. And so Moses answered the people, do not be afraid, stand firm, see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you, you only need to be still. That's great, Moses. Red Sea, Egyptian army. What do you see the problem here? Because I do. So I see three things in here that we can learn from Israel, and that I believe God is telling us. Because as we set up the scenario here, they've got the Red Sea here, so they're like literally backed into a corner, and Pharaoh's army coming. And they can see Pharaoh's army coming, I would guess, because they're panicked about it. So the first thing that I see in here is obviously our two words, be still. I can picture this going two different ways. Either Israel sees Egypt coming, and all of a sudden they're grabbing sticks and stones and whatever else, getting ready to charge into battle with sticks and stones to fight the Egyptian army. So that probably wouldn't go well. I can just say that. God wanted them to be still, but if they rushed into the battle, I don't know what would have happened. Probably not very well for them. It doesn't say how big the Egyptian army was, but it probably didn't. Pharaoh didn't have like a couple of members of his cabinet with him or anything like that. He had probably people with him. His army, he was coming to get his people, coming to get the people back. So I can picture it going that way, and them not being still, them not waiting, and them not letting God fight for them. And not seeing the second thing, the deliverance that God had for them. Moses said, see the deliverance the Lord will give you today, right? And so if they would have fought and decided, well, we're not going to wait, and just took matters into their own hands, they wouldn't have known that God was getting ready to part the Red Sea, have them cross on dry ground, and then fulfill his promise of them not seeing them Egyptians again and wiping them out with the Red Sea. They wouldn't have seen that because they would have fought. And then the third thing that I see here is they had to trust God. They had to trust God with what he was doing. God said to be still. And so they continue to complain to Moses a little bit more. And then God tells Moses, hey, get up there, lift your hands up, and the Red Seas are going to go whoosh. And they did. They crossed on dry ground, and then they went whoosh, and they drowned the Egyptian army. but they had to wait. They kind of had to be still and see that. I don't have it on here, but it says in verse, one of these verses, that they had to wait all night. The thing with the head is that always baffled me too. And it says, and all that night the waters parted. So it wasn't even instantaneous. It was a slow part. It says, verse 21, Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. So they had, not only that, they had to wait all night. So Egypt's still pressing forward. And the last command they had from God, be still and wait. See the deliverance I'll bring you today. I'll fight for you. You just got to wait a minute. And so I shared this kind of exact same, just this past weekend at the time this video is being shot, just this last weekend with the 5th grade students at my church. I shared this kind of thing because we talked about the previous story that we talked about, the storm stories. We talked a little bit about that and how the Lord wants to fight for us. But sometimes it says in Proverbs to trust in the Lord with all your heart, right? So it says to trust God and don't get in the way, because then it says, and lean not on your own understanding. So if you wanted to translate that, it says, trust God and stay out of the way. In my opinion, that's what it says to me. And so I was telling them that, and it's like, sometimes when it says, and lean not on your own understanding, probably means stay out of the way so you don't mess it up anymore. Let God fight for you. Because like I said, Israel could have ran into battle with Egypt. Israel could have just taken storm and just like freaked out and just ran, and they wouldn't have saw what God was going to do for them. So in all of these be still moments and all of these storms that we've kind of looked at, in the storm stories especially, it's kind of like sometimes you got to just kind of hang out and wait and trust God. Let him do what he's going to do. But just like it says here in verse 21, they had to wait all night. They were stopped. Egypt was moving. So can you picture this with me here a little bit? They were seeing Egypt coming at them as they were just kind of like, and maybe they were just kind of looking around, they were waiting, grumbling at Moses, but all the while, God was doing something for them. God was slowly parting the sea, and they were like, Moses, we could have been fine in Egypt. You brought us out here to die. We were fine. We were eating. We were slaves, but still, we had everything that we needed. And Moses is probably just sitting there while these people were complaining. And sometimes we do the same thing, though. Israel resonates with a lot of people, I think, because when I read about their stories and I hear about some of the things that happen, it's kind of like, I've kind of done that before too. So, but in this moment, those 3 things, be still, see the deliverance, and trust God. Because those 3 things happen. We just got to be still and we see what God does. See the kind of patterns. Maybe something he's done for you before. If you waited a minute and he had some kind of deliverance for you. So continue to do that. And then one final thing, it says in Ephesians, finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. To me, that just kind of sums this all up. Just be strong in the Lord, go with God, let him fight your battles that he wants to fight for you anyway. He wasn't just saying this to Israel just to fight this one battle. He carried through. He fought battle after battle for them. He helped them win. He helped them clear out land. He helped them do the different things that they needed to do to get where he was having them go. Let God fight the battles for you. Sometimes, though, you need to fight. So don't get me wrong, like sometimes things you do need to fight for. But sometimes we just kind of got to sit back and let God handle the situation and just be still and let him fight.